Hello everyone, my name is Gia Valgidor and today I will be reporting about Customs Modernization and Tariff Act or RA 10863. So background of this law, Republic Act number 10863, otherwise known as the Customs Modernization and Tariff Act, was signed into law on May 30, 2016. CMTA amended the Tariff and Customs Code of the Philippines with the aim of modernizing customs rules and procedures for faster trade, reduce opportunities for corruption, improve customs service delivery, and improve supply chain. This is the primary site for the public consultation on drafting of the implementing rules and regulations of the CMTA. Declaration of Policy or Section 101, it protects and enhances government revenue to institute fair and transparent customs and tariff management that will efficiently facilitate international trade, prevent and curtail any form of customs fraud and illegal acts, and to modernize customs and tariff administration. Transactions covered under this law are the following: importation of goods, exportation of goods, transportation of passengers and cargoes. So, uh, prior to becoming RA 10863, first we have RA 1937 or Tariff Law of the Republic of the Philippines. It was enacted by President Manuel L. Quezon. So this is the first official expression of an autonomous Philippine Tariff Act. Second, we have Presidential Decree 1464 or the Tariff and Customs Code of 1978, which was enacted by President Ferdinand Marcos. And currently, we have this RA 10863 or the Customs Modernization and Tariff Act. It is enacted by President Benigno S. Aquino III. So electronic goods declaration, increasing the value de minimis importation to 10,000 pesos instead of 10 pesos. Increase in threshold on duty, free balikbayan boxes, and stiffer penalties of smuggling. So the governing bodies of this law, first we have Bureau of Customs. So they do assessment and collection of revenues from imported articles and other impositions under the tariff and enforcement of Tariff and Customs Code and related laws. Second, border control to prevent smuggling and other related frauds. Supervision and control overdue entrance and clearance of vessels and aircraft engaged in foreign commerce. Supervise and control all import and export cargoes for the protection of the government revenue. And lastly, enforcement of tariff and customs code and related laws. And another governing body for this law is the Tariff Commission. This is a government agency tasked to render, investigate, and administrative services relative to the enforcement, implementation, and administration of customs law. It shall conduct such investigation and submit reports as may be required by the President and the Congress of the Philippines. So, Tariff Commission has the following functions: adjudicate cases on the application of trade and remedies against importation, study the impact of tariff policies and programs on national competitiveness and consumer welfare in line with the economic objectives of the government. Third, administer the Philippine tariff schedules and tariff nomenclatures. Fourth, review the trade agreement for negotiation and trade agreement entered into by the Philippines and make recommendations. So what is the purpose of tariff? Tariffs are taxes charged on the import of goods from foreign countries. So tariff is the source of government revenue. It protects domestic industries and remedy to trade distortion. So there are classification of articles under Tariff and Customs Code. So first we have free article. So these are goods which may be freely imported into and exported from the Philippines without need for import and export permits, clearances or licenses otherwise provided by the law or regulations. So this is under section 116 of CMTA. The next article is the regulated. So these are goods that are subject to regulation and which shall be imported and exported only after securing the necessary goods declaration of export declarations, clearances, licenses, and any other requirements prior to importation and exportation. In case importation, submission of requirements after arrival of the goods but prior to release from customs custody shall be allowed, but only in cases provided by the governing laws and regulations or in section 117 of CMTA. Third is the prohibited article. So goods enumerated under section 118 of CMTA and all other goods, the importation and exportation of which are explicitly prohibited by the law or rules and regulations issued by the competent authority. So goods advocating treason, rebellion, and other etc. against government of the Philippines. Goods designed, intended, or adapted for producing unlawful abortion, immoral, obscene, or insidious goods, goods classified as infringing under the Intellectual Property Code, or those prohibited under special laws. So note that prohibited importation are subject to forfeiture whether the shipper and the consignee are one and the same person. So the fourth article is the restricted. So goods enumerated under section 119 of CMTA, the importation and exportation of which are prohibited except when authorized by laws or regulations. So weapons of war such as dynamite, gunpowder, ammunitions, and other explosives, firearms, and weapons of war or parts thereof. Second, gambling devices. Third, gambling narcotics or prohibited drugs, and those prohibited under special law. So these are the contrabands. So what is contrabands? Contrabands are articles prohibited and restricted importation and exportations. So import taxes and duties. So when importing and exporting goods with Philippines, it is ideal to understand the specific types of duties and taxes your product will be subject to. So we have 12% value added tax and custom duty. So there are two duties. So the ad valorem duty, so duty based on the value of the imported article, and special duty, duty based on the dutiable weight of goods, a number or measurement. So who pays the tariff? In general, the importer pays the tariff and are collected by the Bureau. Exporters do not usually pay the tariff or customs duty except for products mentioned in Tariff Customs Code such as specific type of foods, mineral plant, vegetable and animal products that are subject to tariff and premium duties. So how are tariffs charged? So under the free trade agreement in the Philippines, the country enjoys significantly reduced tariff rates within ASEAN, though some tariff lines on sensitive food products still remain. So the Philippines, by the virtue of its membership in ASEAN, is also a party to the 5 FTAs, free trade agreement that ASEAN has signed with the following countries or group of countries. So free trade under Australia and New Zealand, China, India, Japan, and Korea. How are tariffs charged? So we have this harmonized system code or the HS code. So it refers to the code designed by the World Customs Organization as a multi-purpose international product classification describing the type of goods being shipped. So example here, we have the fresh pineapple. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it has 12 digits. So section, pineapple is under vegetable product. So chapter 8, edible fruits and nuts. peel of citrus or melons. So heading for date, figs, pineapple, avocados, etc. Fresh or dried, subheadings, pineapple, and subdivision for national purposes. So pineapple belongs to this category. So each HS code is 0804.30.10 for the fresh pineapple. So next, so the basis of assessment of duty. So we have transaction value system. The transaction value system shall be the price actually paid or payable for the goods when sold for exportation to the Philippines, adjusted in accordance with the provision of this section, Section 701 of CMTA. Cost or insurance rate, brokerage fees and commission, storage fees, handling fees, and cost packaging. So transaction value of identical goods. So identical goods refers to goods which are in the same in all aspects, including physical characteristics, quality, and reputation. Transaction value of similar goods. Similar goods refers to goods which, although not alike in all respects, have like characteristics and similar components, materials which enable them to perform same function to be commercially interchangeable. Deductive value based on the unit price at which the imported goods or identical or similar imported goods are sold in the Philippines. Next, for the basis of assessment of duty, we have computed value. So some of the following: direct materials and labor, operating expense, profit, and freight. Next basis is the fallback value. So it shall be determined by using other reasonable means and on the basis of data available in the Philippines. So importation, as a general rule, all goods imported into the Philippines shall be entered through a custom office at a port of entry. Otherwise, it will be smuggled. So port of entry, this refers to a domestic port open to both domestic and international trade, including principal ports of entry and subport entry. So the principal port entry shall be located, this is all over the Philippines. And here in northern Mindanao, we have one in Taguluan, or the MCT port or MICT port. So it is where the vessel dock and all the importation and exportation of goods will be done on that port. So it is one of the port of entry here in the Philippines. So how does importation begins? So it begins when the carrying vessel or aircraft enters the Philippine territory with intention to unload therein. And it ends the duties, taxes, and other charges due upon the goods have been paid or secured to be paid at the port of entry, and legal permit for withdrawal has been granted. In case goods are deemed free of duties, taxes, and other charges, the goods have legally left the jurisdiction of Bureau. So these are the steps for the importation. So first we have goods declaration. So import entry, it is a declaration to the Bureau of Customs showing the description, value, tariff classification, and other particulars of the imported article to enable the customs to determine the correct customs duties and internal revenue taxes due on the importation. So types of import entry, we have formal, so covered by a letter or credit or any verifiable commercial document evidencing payment, or by any commercial document indicating the commercial value of the goods. The consignee must be an active, registered, and accredited importer with the Bureau of Customs and the Bureau of Internal Revenue. Next are informal, so no longer requires documents. So goods of a commercial nature with a free on board and free carrier at value less than 50,000 pesos, and personal and household effects of goods not in commercial quantity imported in passengers baggage or mail. So FOB is important during importation. So we call this one as Incoterms. So in our case, um, however, we do exportation, but for our clients who are uh, abroad, especially Singapore, India, or America. So after the vessel departure, we will send the documents. So these are also the documents that they'll be needing. So if uh, it is just an intra-Asia vessel or it is an intra-Asia transaction, so we need to send documents to them within 3 days. So prior to arriving the vessel, they should have the documents. So for them to check and for them to show to their ports the legality of the importation. So goods declaration or making of import entry. So entry in customs law has threefold meaning. So the documents filed at the customs house, the submission and acceptance of the documents by the BOC, and customs declaration form or customs entry form required to be accomplished by the passenger of incoming vessel or passenger planes as envisaged under Section 2505 of the TCCP, now Section 1404 of CMTA. So we are also observing this every time we go abroad that we have this form that really filled up to uh, prior to arriving in the airport. So it also covers us and also submitting ourselves that we are arriving in our destination in a foreign country. So it is the purpose of that is not just to track, but for a legality purposes. So required documents to be submitted. So commercial invoice or letter of credit, air and sea freight bill or bill of lading, importation license, packing list, and certificate of origin. So I'll show you the documents that I'll be sending to the client after the vessel departure. So uh, this is the commercial invoice. So this is the invoice number, and this is the consignee. So the Del Monte Foods Incorporated address is at Walnut Street, California, USA. So this is the commercial invoice, and next is we call this as shipping documents. So this is the packing list. Next is the certificate of manufacturing expiry date. So next is certificate of analysis. This is the certificate of origin. So it has its vessel name and shipment date and the consignee. So it is being stamped by the Bureau of Customs. And this is the seaway bill or the freight way bill. So this is the non-negotiable way bill. So this is under Maersk. And another document that they'll be needing is this QCOF or the quarantine clearance for outgoing food, stuff, or product. So since we are dealing with food products, so this certificate is needed, so it has yet to be certified by Bureau of Quarantine. However, I send it prior to them for the customer to show to their port so that they can claim the product. However, I need after collecting all the original documents, I really need to send them the original docs so that they'll be needing it for their accounting purposes. So goods declaration and period of filing. So goods declaration must be lodged within 15 days from the date of discharge and the package from the vessel or aircraft. The period to file the goods declaration may, upon request, be extended on valid grounds for another 15 days, provided that the request is made before the expiration of the original period within which to file the goods declaration. So how? The Bureau shall require the electronic lodgement of the goods declaration. So same thing with us. So the client will email us if we haven't sent yet documents that they'll be needing us, or else their goods will be hold at the port, or if they can show anything, any valid documents, so it will be forfeited. So the goods that they'll be paying will be forfeited and will be owned by the government eventually. So step two is examination, classification, and appraisal of the imported articles. Examination of goods when required by the Bureau shall be conducted immediately after the goods declaration has been lodged. Priority in the examination shall be given to live animals, perishable goods, and other goods requiring immediate examination. In the examination, classification, and valuation of goods, the custom officer shall determine whether the packages for examination and their contents are in accordance with the goods declaration, invoice, and other pertinent documents. Take sample of imported goods for examination or laboratory analysis when necessary. So issue a receipt for sample taken and retained during examination, and report whether the goods have been correctly declared as to value, quantity, measurement, weight, tariff, classification, and not contrary to law. So all those evidences or documents shall be presented prior to withdrawing the goods at the port. So also for us, we uh, add additional quantity for the sample. So um, we have to declare, even if it's just few items, but we have to declare it, or else it will be forfeited by the government or the one examining the ports, because it is not declared on the list of documents. So regardless of if you will be adding boxes or cartoons or other samples um, that is not listed in the packages, it will not be released to you, not unless it is stated on the documents. So, as a general rule, the Bureau may examine the goods in the presence of the declarant or an authorized representative. The cost of the examination shall be for the account of the importer or exporter, subject to proper accounting and documentation. So assessment and release in this phase, based on the documents submitted, the BOC shall classify value and determine the duties and taxes to be paid. So liquidation, so once lodged, the Bureau of Customs after examination will the release its final assessment notice of the total taxes and duties payable by the importer. Payment of taxes after that, the importer shall has a period of 15 days from receipt of the fund or final assessment notice within which to pay for the corresponding duties and taxes. The 15 days is also the period within which the importer may contest the assessment issued by the Bureau of Customs at the border. Otherwise, assessment will be deemed final after the lapse of 15-day period. Release of goods after the payment of duties and taxes. The importer will then have 30 days period, non-extendable, to claim the goods from customs custody. Otherwise, the goods will be abandoned. So what is abandonment? In this case, the local authorities will interfere once the cargo is deemed abandoned, considered as property of the government under any of the following circumstances. When the owner, importer, or consignee of the imported goods expressly signifies in writing to the district collector the intention to abandon the same, or when the importer fails to file the goods declaration within 15 days, previously a 30-day non-extendable period, or within the approved extended period of another 15 days from notice of the date of discharge of the last package from the vessel or aircraft. Having filed such declaration, the importer fails to pay the assessed duties and taxes within 15 days from receipt of notice of final assessment, and failure to claim the goods within 30 days, previously 15 days from payment of duties and taxes. So we did experience this, or if one of us will experience this if we purchase anything abroad. So prior to claiming that goods, we have to pay, or the importer has to pay. So it is between the agreement of the importer and the exporter. But um, bottom line is there will be charges that you need to pay when buying something abroad, and when purchasing abroad and having it imported here in the Philippines. So remedy is lifting. So lifting of abandonment must be processed for a shipment if consignee still wants to claim the package after shipment is already tagged as abandoned. Filing of cash bond in an amount to be fixed by the Commissioner of Bureau of Custom. Next is notification to owner or importer. Third is description, appraisal, and classification of seized property. Fourth is settlement of case of payment or fine or redemption of forfeited property. An amount less than 20% nor more than 80% of the landed cost of the seized imported article, meaning the dutiable value plus VAT of the item. So if the Bureau of Customs has not disposed the goods implied to be abandoned, the owner or importer of goods may, within 30 days after the lapse of the prescribed period, to file the declaration. 15 days extendable for another 15 days. Still reclaim the goods by complying with all requirements and paying the corresponding duties, taxes, and other charges. On the other hand, if the BOC has already sold the goods, the proceeds of the sale after deduction of any duty and tax and all other charges and expenses shall be turned over to those persons entitled to receive them. Conditionally tax and or duty exempt importation. So the following goods shall be exempt from payment of import duties upon compliance with the formalities prescribed in the regulation. No duties and taxes shall be collected in goods with FOB or FCA value of 10,000 pesos or below. Balikbayan boxes containing personal and household not exceeding 150,000 per transaction. This can only be availed if the privilege up to 3 times in a calendar year. Any amount in excess of the allowable non-dutiable value shall be subject to the applicable duties and taxes. So the following goods shall be exempt from payment of import duties upon compliance with the formalities prescribed. So third, personal and household effects belonging to returning residents, including the household appliances, jewelry, precious stones, and other goods of luxury purchased in foreign countries by residents of the Philippines, which were necessary, appropriate, and normally used for their comfort and convenience during their stay abroad, accompanying them in their return or arriving within a reasonable time, which barring unforeseen or fortuitous events. In no case shall it exceed 60 days after the owner's return. So limited to the FCA or FOB value of 350,000, 10-year stay in other country and have not availed of this privilege with 10 years prior to returning residence arrival. 250,000 at least, but not more than 10 years, and have not availed of this privilege within 5 years prior to returning residence arrival. And lastly, 150,000 stayed in a foreign country for a period less than 5 years and have not availed of this privilege within 6 months prior to returning residence arrival. So exportation. General rule, all goods exported from the Philippines, whether subject to export duty or not, shall be declared through a competent customs office through a declaration, duly signed electronically or otherwise by the party making the declaration. So lodgement and processing of export declaration through SAD. So a requirement, a commercial invoice for all shipments with the commodity shipped out is subject for return to Philippines, whether they were exported for repair, for exhibit, or for calibration. Picture of the item with the serial number, updated copy of certificate of registration as an exporter, packing list, pro forma invoice, and certificate of origin if needed. So these are the documents that we'll be needing from our part for us to export our product. So this is the SAD, single administrative documents. So this one, if this will be approved here, so by the Bureau of Customs. And another one also is this is the PESA AEDS or the administrative export declaration documents. So it has container numbers and then the PESA seal. So this will also be approved by the PESA representative. So after which also we have this gate out and valid. So this is the um, PESA control number, or this is the rider. So those are the documents needed for lodgement prior to um, prior to lodging in successfully the exported products. So regulated products for export. So certain products require government permission to be exported. So below is a detailed list of products requiring additional permission as well as concerned government. So authority. Endangered species of flora and fauna. So it is being governed by Bureau of Biodiversity Management. Second is animals and animal products. So Bureau of Animal Industry. Third is Fish and Fish Product, Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources. Plants, Bureau of Plant Industry. Rice, National Food Authority. Radioactive Materials, Philippine Nuclear Research Institute. And sugar and molasses, it is being concerned by the Sugar um, Reg- Regulatory Administration. So special duties, these are imposed in addition to regular and ordinary duties, principally in order to protect local industries against unfair competition from foreign manufacturers or procedures, consumer against possible deceptions and national interest. So we have anti-dumping duty, countervailing duty, discriminatory duty, marking duty, and safeguard duty, or the Republic Act number 8800. So, anti-dumping duty imposed by the Secretary of Trade and Industry or the Secretary of Agriculture Finance when the imported articles are, after investigation, are being sold or likely to be sold in the Philippines at a price less than its fair value, and the importation of sale of which might be injure or prevent the establishment of is likely to injure an industry in the Philippines. So amount of special duty extent uh, of the underpricing. So yung mga mas murang imported products that will hamper the operation of the Philippine products. So it is a threat, or there is a competition in the market that they most likely see that the imported product will be more saleable than the Philippine product. So they will dump that article. Next is countervailing duty imposed by the Secretary of Trade and Industry or the Secretary of Agriculture after investigation on an article upon the production, manufacture, or export of which any bounty, subsidy, or subvention is directly or indirectly granted in the country of origin and exportation, and the importation is likely to be materially injure an established industry or prevent or considerably retard the establishment of an industry in the Philippines. So amount of special duty equals to the bounty or subsidy or subvention. Next is discriminatory duty. So this is imposed by the President of the Philippines in the amount not exceeding 100% of the existing rates upon articles from any foreign country that first imposes any unreasonable charge, exaction, regulation, or limitation on the Philippine goods which is not equally enforced upon the like articles of every foreign country, or discriminates in fact against commerce of the Philippines in respect to any customs, tonnage, or port duty, fee charge, exaction, classification, regulation, condition, restriction, or prohibition in such manner as to place the commerce of the Philippines at a disadvantage compared with the commerce of any foreign country. So these are all threats to our industry. That's why uh, this is being imposed by the government. Next is the marking duty. So special duty of 5% ad valorem imposed of the articles properly marked collected by the commissioner, except when such article is exported or destroyed under the customs supervision and prior to final liquidation of the corresponding entry. So lastly, we have the safeguard duty or RA 8800. So general safeguard duty This is a duty imposed by the Secretary of Trade after positively determining that a product is being imported in increased quantities, whether absolute or relative to domestic production, as to be substantial cause of injury or threat to domestic industry. Special safeguard duty for agriculture imposed by the Commissioner of Customs upon request of the Secretary of Agriculture to the Secretary of Finance on an agricultural product consistent with our international obligation when its cumulative import volume exceeds the trigger volume, or even when the trigger volume is not exceeded, it fails the price test. So importations violations. So the common kinds of importation violations that violate the tax credit provisions of the tariff and customs are the following. So first we have smuggling. Smuggling is an act of any person who shall fraudulently import or bring into the Philippines or assist in doing so any article contrary to law or to receive, conceal, buy, sell, or in any manner facilitate the transportation, concealment, or sale of such article after importation, knowing the same have to be imported contrary to law. So it includes the exportation of articles in a manner contrary to law of 3519. So these are in our layman's term or commonly as not registered article because it is a fraud because you did not declare it properly prior to arriving here in the Philippines, or you did not declare the goods to the right custody prior to um, selling it or using it here in the Philippines. Next is other fraudulent practices, so unlawful importation, entry or exit of articles by means of false or fraudulent practices, invoices, declaration affidavits, or other documents, entry of good at a less than their true weight or upon false classification as to true quality of value, payment of less than the amount due, filing of any false or fraudulent claim of the payment of drawback or refund of duties upon exportation of merchandise, filing any affidavit, certificate, or other documents to secure to him or others the payment of any drawback, allowance, or refund of duties in the exportation of merchandise greater than that legality due. So if we do have plans of going abroad and buying stuff there, uh, prior to arriving here in the Philippines, we should know that there will be taxes that we need to pay for those stuff or goods that we purchase abroad. So if we will just declare it and then um, and we are also obliged to pay for it. So we as citizens of the Philippines should not uh, practice violating those payment of those goods because as I have discussed earlier, the tariffs or these payments will be a source of revenue of the Philippines. So remedies of the government, we have administrative remedy, so attachment of tax lien, section 1204. Second is imposition of fines or forfeitures and seizures proceedings. Notice to importer is required by due process and sale of property in customs custody. So judicial remedy, action of declaratory relief to determine legality of its issuances like customs memorandum order classifying certain articles, action for collection of duties usually when lien is lost because goods have been released, liability attaches to the goods. Remedies of the importer, administrative remedies, we have protest, abandonment, abatement, and refund. Judicial remedies, so a taxpayer must first take his administrative remedies and only after exhaustion of administrative remedies resort to judicial remedies to be filed in the Court of Appeals or Regional Trial Court. So as importer, we should have to do this first prior to taking action of doing judicial remedy. So let's define the remedies of the importer. Under administrative remedies, we have protest. So when a taxpayer must protest, he disagrees with the ruling or decisions of the collector of customs, payment under protest essential. So within what period may protest to be filed? So within days from the payment, from the occurrence of the event that rendered payment illegal or erroneous, taxpayer may ask for release pending protest. Effect or failure to protest on time, so action of the collectors become final, except for manifest errors. Second, abandonment. So when a taxpayer may resort to abandonment, when taxpayer wants to relieve himself of duty of paying duties. Effect on the owner of abandonment, relief from payment of duties, taxes, and other charges, but no criminal liability. Third is the abatement and refund. Abatement cases, example, missing packages, deficiencies in contents before arrival, losses after arrival, dead or injured animal. Drawback cases, example, refund of tax credit granted on duties that had been paid on products that are subsequently exported, example, fuel on vessels in international trade. And next is article used by the raw materials of items subsequently exported. So that would be all my report, and thank you so much.